Hey everyone, I'm here to help you relax and drift off tonight. If you enjoy using these videos to fall asleep, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more calming content. Share where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I'd love to know. Now settle into a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's start unwinding together. Celia Armitage had always been drawn to the mysteries of old legends. Growing up in the quiet village of Westvale, she listened to her grandmother's stories of enchanted places and spectral wonders. Among these stories, the legend of the Wandering Castle struck a chord deep within her, a promise of adventure and the hope of discovering a place where the past and present danced in an endless waltz. Now a determined historian with a passion for uncovering secrets, Celia received an unexpected letter. Written on parchment and sealed with a crest she recognized from ancient family records. It read simply, "Seek the castle that drifts with the wind of fate. Find it when the moon is full, for it will reveal what is hidden and guide you toward your destiny." Though the letter provided no precise location, it stirred something within her, a burning curiosity and a longing to glimpse the impossible. With nothing but her journal, a satchel of essentials, and a heart full of quiet determination, Celia set out on a journey into a world where reality blurred with myth. Celia's journey took her through misty forests, over rolling hills and along forgotten roads that twisted like ribbons across the land. At sunrise one chilly morning, she arrived at a barren plain where an otherworldly glow tinged the horizon. There, on a ridge crowned by ancient stones, she caught her first glimpse of the castle. Its towering spires and sturdy walls glinted in the early light, though its exact location was uncertain. One moment it seemed to stand on the hill, the next it was shrouded in the swirling mists. The villagers she encountered spoke of the castle in reverent, disbelieving tones. "It's come and gone since the old days. They say it's a living relic, cursed to wander until the world finds its lost balance." Each word fed Celia's determination, even as the uncertainty of its location both daunted and delighted her. With careful sketches and meticulous notes, she documented every detail of the landscape, hoping to discern a pattern that might reveal the castle's mysterious route. Days melted into nights as Celia tracked the elusive castle. She learned to read the subtle signs, a glimmer of stone in the distance, the echo of voices on the wind that seemed to speak of ancient battles and lost loves. On one moonlit night, as silver light bathed the land, she finally witnessed the phenomenon firsthand. In a clearing bordered by towering oaks, the castle appeared in all its imposing glory, a vast, labyrinthine structure of weathered stone and ivy-clad walls. Celia's heart leapt with wonder as she watched the castle's spires shift imperceptibly, as though rearranging themselves in response to some unseen force. She set up her camera and recorded the scene, the soft hum of the night intermingling with the distant echoing clang of what might have been a tolling bell. It was as if the castle itself were alive, breathing the history of millennia into every crevice. Yet as quickly as it had appeared, the castle began to fade, its outlines dissolving into the night until nothing remained but the whisper of a legend. Determined to understand the magic that animated the Wandering Castle, Celia sought answers in the dusty archives of Westvale's ancient library. There, hidden among fragile manuscripts and brittle maps, she uncovered the story of Lord Alaric Blackwood, a nobleman whose lineage was said to be cursed with eternal wandering. According to the faded records, Alaric had commissioned the castle's construction as a bastion of hope and prosperity. Yet tragedy struck when a forbidden love in an act of betrayal shattered his world. In his anguish, Alaric invoked an ancient spell, binding his castle to the land so that it would wander in search of the lost fragments of his broken heart. The castle was doomed never to remain in one place, a perpetual wanderer carrying with it both the memory of his love and the sorrow of his betrayal. The manuscript ended with a cryptic passage, "As long as the heart remains unhealed, so shall the walls wander, forever chasing the echo of lost time. Only when the spirit of forgiveness fills the void will the castle find its final home. This revelation struck Celia with profound emotion. The castle was not merely a haunted relic, but a symbol, a monument to the unending quest for redemption and healing. Determined to see its story unfold, she resolved to continue her pursuit, hoping that one day she might witness the moment when the curse was lifted. As Celia journeyed further, she encountered remnants of the castle's long, sorrowful past. In one remote village, she met an old storyteller named Mr. Langley, whose eyes glowed with the wistful light of memory. Over cups of bitter tea in a creaking tavern, he recounted tales of the castle's many wanderings, the days when its silhouette would grace the horizon during a rare full moon, the nights when its shifting form would cast long shadows over the fields, as if trying to reclaim what was lost. "They say," Mr. Langley murmured, "that every stone of that castle holds a memory, every arch a whisper of a promise unfulfilled." These stories, though tinged with sorrow, ignited in Celia a sense of urgency. Each new detail was a piece of a vast, intricate puzzle, a narrative of love, loss, and the eternal search for closure. With renewed determination, she continued her quest, her footsteps echoing through ancient woods and across barren moors, each one a testament to her unyielding resolve. On a fateful night, when the full moon hung low in the sky like a silver sentinel, Celia arrived at a rugged plateau where the land met the heavens. There, beneath the luminous glow, the castle appeared in a moment of transcendent beauty. It stood not as a static relic, but as a living, shifting monument, a tapestry of stone that danced in the moonlight, its form both familiar and impossibly new. In that moment, as the wind whispered through the ancient pines and the castle's spires shimmered with ephemeral light, Celia felt a profound connection, a sense that she was witnessing not merely the physical structure of the castle, but the culmination of a centuries-old longing. The castle's very presence seemed to call to her, to promise that the path to healing was not in reaching a destination, but in embracing the endless journey of forgiveness and renewal. Overwhelmed by emotion, Celia recorded the scene in her journal with feverish strokes. She described the interplay of light and shadow, the gentle undulations of the castle's form, and the quiet, almost imperceptible sound of a heart breaking and mending with each passing moment. It was as though the castle itself were breathing, its ancient soul reaching out to her in a silent plea for closure. In the days that followed that wondrous night, Celia became determined to uncover the key to breaking the curse that doomed the castle to eternal wandering. Her research led her to a long-forgotten ritual described in a weathered scroll kept in the town's archives. The ritual, known as the Rite of Reconciliation, required a pure act of forgiveness, a heartfelt acknowledgement of past wrongs, both personal and collective. Only through such an act could the curse be lifted, allowing the castle to finally find a permanent home and its restless soul to be at peace. Celia sought out those whose lives had been touched by the castle's shifting presence. A descendant of Lord Alaric Blackwood, an old widow whose youth had been shadowed by the castle's ominous visits, and even local mystics who claimed to have witnessed the castle's many forms. Together they gathered at the ancient stone circle deep in the forest, where the energy of the land pulsed with the weight of history. Under the pale glow of the full moon, they performed the ritual. With tearful voices and trembling hands, they recited ancient incantations and offered tokens of forgiveness. A cherished locket, a faded letter, a single white rose. As their words filled the night air, the ground beneath them shivered, and far in the distance the castle's outline wavered, as if caught in a delicate balance between past and present. For what felt like an eternity, the ritual unfolded in silence and soft lamentations, until at last the castle's wandering form stilled. In a moment of pure, crystalline clarity, the ancient walls shimmered with a radiant light, and the curse that had bound the castle to endless movement began to dissolve. The castle, once a restless spirit, now stood firm, a beacon of redemption, a testament to the transformative power of forgiveness. In the aftermath of the ritual, a sense of profound peace descended upon the land. The castle, now anchored to a single, serene location on the plateau, became a sanctuary for those seeking solace and renewal. Celia, with tears of relief and gratitude streaming down her face, wandered through the now stationary corridors of the castle. Every stone, every arch seemed to whisper stories of the past, stories of pain transformed into hope, of endless journeys culminating in a moment of grace. The local villagers celebrated the change. No longer was the castle a specter of wandering sorrow. It had become a symbol of redemption and the enduring strength of the human spirit. Festivities were held in the town square, where people recounted the tale of the castle that finally found its home, a story that bridged the gap between myth and reality. The once restless walls now echoed with laughter, music, and the joyful murmurs of a community united by a shared legacy of overcoming darkness. Over the years, the castle that had once roamed the lands transformed into a living museum, a repository of history, art, and the enduring testament of forgiveness. Scholars and dreamers from across the realm journeyed to see the castle, each leaving with a deep sense of wonder and a renewed belief in the possibility of healing even the deepest wounds. Celia dedicated herself to preserving the castle's history, meticulously cataloging its many forms and the legends that had grown around it. Her writings, published under the title Wanderings No More, became a classic tale of redemption and hope, inspiring countless others to seek reconciliation in their own lives. The castle itself, with its walls now glowing softly in the gentle light of the dawn, stood as a reminder that even the most restless souls can find a place of rest when touched by the transformative power of love and forgiveness. In the twilight of her life, Celia would often sit on a stone bench in the castle's grand courtyard, gazing out over the serene landscape that now lay before her. The once wandering castle, now a steadfast beacon in the horizon, reflected the beauty of a world that had learned to heal. In her heart, she knew that the journey was not about reaching a distant destination, but about the transformative process of growth, reconciliation, and the eternal dance between memory and hope. As the seasons changed and the castle's ivy grew ever more lush against its ancient stones, the legend of the wandering fortress became a cherished chapter in local lore. A reminder that forgiveness can anchor even the most tumultuous of journeys, and that in every end there lies the seed of a new beginning. Thus, the tale of the castle that never stays in one place endures, a saga of shifting walls and healing hearts, of restless journeys culminating in the serene embrace of redemption. For as long as the land remembers the echoes of lost dreams and the promise of renewed hope, the castle will stand, a timeless monument to the power of forgiveness and the eternal quest for belonging. Ever since she was a child growing up in the humble village of Lunisford, Clara Ashton had been entranced by tales of the glowing river. At night, as the firelight danced upon her grandmother's weathered face, she would listen to stories of a river that shimmered like liquid starlight, a river that seemed to hold the memories of 1,000 souls in its glistening depths. Now, in her early 30s and working as a naturalist, Clara longed to experience the river's magic for herself. One crisp autumn evening, while poring over her grandfather's old journals in the attic of her family home, Clara discovered a faded map with a single, cryptic annotation: "Follow the silver trail when the night awakens, and behold the river of light." The map, though rough and aged, depicted a route leading deep into the wilderness, a path that, if the legends were true, would bring her face to face with the fabled river. With her heart pounding and a spark of adventurous resolve, Clara packed her gear, a sturdy backpack, a notebook for recording her observations, and a camera, and set out under a twilight sky. Clara's journey took her far from the familiar lanes of Lunisford into the wild, untamed lands of the Northern Highlands. The road was rough, winding through dense forests where ancient pines whispered secrets and rugged mountains loomed like silent sentinels. Along the way, she encountered meandering streams, moss-covered rocks, and fields of wildflowers that bowed under the cool breath of the evening wind. Every step felt like a step deeper into a forgotten realm, where the present merged with echoes of the past. As night fell, the world transformed. The forest, once alive with the chatter of daytime creatures, succumbed to an eerie hush. The sky overhead shimmered with countless stars, and the moon, full and luminous, bathed the landscape in a silver glow. Guided only by the map and her own intuition, Clara pressed onward, her thoughts swirling with anticipation and a touch of fear of what she might find. After days of arduous travel, Clara reached a narrow valley hidden between rugged hills. There, snaking its way through the landscape, was the river of light. As she approached its banks, the sound of gently lapping water filled the air, accompanied by a soft, almost otherworldly hum. At first glance, the river appeared like any other, a clear, winding waterway, but as dusk deepened into night, a transformation began to occur. Gradually, the water took on a luminous quality. Tiny specks of light began to shimmer beneath the surface, growing in intensity until the entire river glowed with an ethereal radiance. It was as though the water had been infused with stardust, reflecting the light of a hidden world. Clara stood transfixed on the riverbank, overwhelmed by the beauty and mystery before her. Every ripple of the water, every flicker of radiant glow, whispered secrets of forgotten times, memories of long-lost civilizations, ancient rites, and the quiet, enduring power of nature's magic. Over the following nights, Clara dedicated herself to studying the glowing river. She set up camp on its banks and spent hours observing its behavior. With her camera and notebooks in hand, she recorded the changing patterns of the light, how the glow pulsed rhythmically, as if breathing, and how it seemed to intensify during moments of absolute stillness. Local folklore suggested that the river's glow was connected to a natural phenomenon, bioluminescent organisms thriving in its waters. But what Clara observed hinted at something far deeper and more mysterious. She noticed that the light would occasionally form fleeting images, outlines of figures and symbols that vanished as quickly as they appeared. In one such moment, as she sat by the fire under a sky ablaze with stars, she saw the faint silhouette of a woman, her face contorted with sorrow, emerging from the rippling water. The apparition, or what seemed to be an echo of it, whispered words that Clara could not discern, leaving her with a haunting mix of wonder and despair. Driven by these strange visions, Clara began to delve into the history of the valley. She visited the local archives and spoke with elderly residents who recalled that centuries ago, the valley had been home to a thriving civilization, a people who revered the river as a sacred entity, believing it to be a conduit between the mortal realm and the divine. Over time, however, calamities had befallen the civilization, and their once honored rituals faded into myth. The glowing river, it was said, was the lingering echo of those ancient ceremonies, a memory of a time when the veil between worlds was thin and every soul carried a spark of otherworldly light. One particularly clear night, under the light of a full, resplendent moon, Clara decided to attempt an experiment. She recalled an old verse from one of the archival texts. "When the moon ascends and shadows wane, let the river's glow reveal what lies hidden." With trembling hands, she arranged a small circle of candles along the riverbank and recited the incantation softly, as if not to disturb the delicate magic of the place. To her astonishment, The glow of the river responded immediately. The light intensified, swirling around the candles and coalescing into shimmering shapes. In that enchanted moment, Clara felt as if she were standing at the threshold of a sacred ritual, a bridge between the known and the mysterious. The luminous shapes formed images, a figure kneeling in prayer, a pair of lovers embraced beneath a willow, and a solitary child gazing upward with eyes full of wonder. Each vision was a fleeting fragment of the valley's past, a memory captured in light and shadow. The experience was both exhilarating and overwhelming. Clara recorded every detail in her journal, describing the shifting images and the emotion that surged within her. She felt as though the river was revealing its secrets in exchange for her reverence, a gift of insight into the deep, timeless currents of life. In the days that followed, word of the glowing river and its mysterious visions spread beyond the small village. Travelers, mystics, and curious scholars journeyed to the valley, each seeking a glimpse of the sacred light. Among these visitors was an enigmatic elder named Elias, who claimed to be a guardian of the valley's ancient wisdom. Elias spoke of the river with a mixture of awe and sorrow, explaining that its glow was not merely a natural wonder, but a living memory, a repository of the hopes, dreams, and tragedies of a long-lost people. Long ago, Elias explained in a voice as soft as the rustling leaves, our ancestors believed that the river was a gift from the heavens, a stream of celestial light meant to guide the souls of the departed. In times of joy and sorrow, they would gather by its banks to sing songs of remembrance, to call upon the divine for solace. But as time passed, those rituals faded, and the river's glow became a lonely beacon, a reminder of what was lost. Yet for those with open hearts, it still speaks. It reveals not only the history of our land, but the hidden truths of our own souls. Elias's words resonated deeply with Clara, who found in his story a reflection of her own inner journey. In the company of the guardians and other seekers, she began to piece together the history of the glowing river, uncovering lost legends and reviving ancient songs that celebrated the ephemeral nature of life and the enduring power of memory. Autumn deepened, and with it, the glow of the river grew ever more brilliant, as if nourished by the rich tapestry of fading leaves and the chill of approaching winter. On a crisp, clear night, as the full moon cast silver light over the valley, the community gathered for what came to be known as the Harvest of Memories, a ritual celebration to honor the river's revelations. Under a sky strewn with countless stars, villagers and visitors assembled along the riverbank. They lit lanterns and sang ancient hymns, each note carrying the weight of both joy and sorrow. As the ceremony reached its zenith, the river's glow swirled into a mesmerizing dance, painting the water in hues of gold, violet, and turquoise. For a moment, the luminous current carried images of the past, forgotten faces, lost embraces, and whispered vows that echoed across time. It was as if every soul that had ever graced the valley was there, present in the gentle, radiant flow of the river. Clara, standing amid the gathering, felt an overwhelming surge of gratitude and a bittersweet ache for all that had been lost. The ritual was both a celebration and a lament, a reaffirmation that though the past was immutable, its memories could inspire hope and foster healing. In that sacred communion, the glowing river became a beacon of eternal possibility, a reminder that every moment, no matter how fleeting, held within it the promise of rebirth. In the weeks that followed the Harvest of Memories, Clara continued to study the river and its luminous magic. She spent countless hours by the water's edge, recording the delicate interplay of light and shadow, the transient images that emerged from the glow, and the quiet murmurs of the valley's ancient lore. With each passing night, she felt herself transformed by the beauty and melancholy of the river. The light, which once evoked a sense of eerie wonder, now seemed to infuse her with quiet strength and a deeper understanding of life's impermanence. Her journal filled with heartfelt reflections, detailed sketches, and lyrical poems that captured the soul of the river. She wrote of the way the water shimmered like liquid starlight, of the voices of the past carried on the breeze, and of the hope that arose from the gentle cadence of each ripple. Through her writing, Clara came to realize that the glowing river was not just a natural phenomenon, it was a living metaphor for the passage of time, the beauty of memories, and the eternal cycle of loss and renewal. One particularly clear night, as winter's chill gave way to the soft promise of early spring, Clara had a revelation. Sitting by the river in silence, she noticed that the glow seemed to form a delicate veil, a shimmering curtain that separated the tangible present from the spectral past. With a steady hand, she dipped her fingers into the cool, glowing water, and for a fleeting moment, she felt as if the veil lifted, revealing not only the history of the valley, but also a glimpse of what might be. In that transcendent moment, Clara saw visions of lives intertwined, a young couple laughing by the river's edge, a solitary elder reciting ancient tales, children chasing fireflies under the soft glow of twilight. The luminous veil, as she later described in her writings, was a portal into the collective soul of the land, a mosaic of memories and dreams that transcended time. It was a reminder that while the river's glow illuminated the forgotten past, it also held the power to guide those who listened toward a future filled with endless possibility. Years passed, and Clara's work became renowned throughout the region. Her book, The Luminous Veil, a rich tapestry of personal memoirs, local lore, and poetic reflections, resonated with readers far and wide, inspiring a new generation to embrace the beauty of their own memories and to seek the magic hidden in the world around them. The glowing river of Elder Crest, once a solitary, eerie phenomenon, came to be celebrated as a symbol of renewal, a living embodiment of the eternal cycle of life, loss, and rebirth. The villagers, once wary of the river's strange light, now gathered each full moon for quiet vigils along its banks, sharing stories of the past and dreams of the future. The ritual of the Harvest of Memories evolved into an annual festival, drawing travelers and mystics, poets and dreamers, all eager to witness the river's ethereal glow and to partake in its quiet celebration of existence. Clara, now a revered storyteller and guardian of the valley's secrets, often sat by the water's edge in the gentle twilight, her eyes reflecting the myriad hues of the glowing river. In her heart, she carried the knowledge that the river was not just a phenomenon of nature, but a living bridge between what was, what is, and what might be, a testament to the enduring power of memory and the infinite possibilities of the human spirit. In the soft light of early spring, when the valley was awash with the delicate colors of renewal, the legend of the glowing river continued to enchant all who heard its story. The luminous water shimmering under the full moon whispered secrets of forgotten worlds and the timeless dance of light and memory. Those who stood on its banks felt an unspoken promise that even as time marches inexorably forward, the past remains a part of us, its beauty preserved in the gentle glow of every ripple, its sorrow transmuted into hope. Thus, the story of the river that glows at night endures, a luminous saga of mystery, memory, and the eternal interplay between light and darkness. For as long as the river flows through the valley, its radiant light will serve as a beacon for dreamers and seekers alike, a promise that in every fleeting moment there lies the potential for infinite renewal. Evelyn Hawthorne had always been captivated by tales of mystery. Growing up in Eldermere, she'd listened to her grandmother's bedtime stories about enchanted roads and secret voices that drifted on the wind. Now, as a young historian and writer in her late 20s, she found herself yearning to escape the confines of modern life. When a faded hand-drawn map, stained with the patina of forgotten years, landed in her mailbox, marked with cryptic symbols and the phrase, "Listen, and the past will speak to you." Evelyn felt an irresistible pull. She packed her notebook, a trusty recorder, and a well-worn camera, and set out one misty morning toward the ancient road that wound along the outskirts of her village. With every step on the gravelly pavement, she felt the stirring of something ineffable, a presence that was neither entirely past nor entirely present, but a whisper of what once was. At first, the road appeared ordinary, a narrow, dusty lane flanked by gnarled trees and wild, untamed fields. Yet as Evelyn walked, the air grew heavy with anticipation. The gentle rustle of leaves and distant bird calls began to fade, replaced by a quiet, almost imperceptible murmur. It was as if the road itself were breathing, exhaling a soft symphony of voices that could barely be heard above the whisper of the wind. Evelyn stopped and listened. The voices were not loud, but they carried a profound melancholy and a tender warmth. In one fleeting moment, she distinctly heard a woman's soft laughter, mingled with the quiet weeping of a man's lament. The road spoke of secrets, of a family torn apart by time, of battles fought in shadows, of loves lost and promises made beneath the silver glow of the moon. Each sound was a fragment of a story, a memory hidden within the folds of time. Determined to capture these echoes, Evelyn recorded the sounds, her heart racing with the knowledge that the road was a living repository of history. Over the following days, Evelyn embarked on a systematic journey along the road. She documented every whisper, every rustle that seemed imbued with the voices of bygone eras. Along the route, she discovered relics scattered like breadcrumbs, an old rusted locket half buried in the soil, a faded scrap of paper bearing a name and a date, a broken pocket watch that had long since ceased ticking. Each artifact carried with it a sliver of the past, each one a testament to lives that had once flourished and faded away. In one particularly evocative stretch, the road passed a crumbling stone wall covered in ivy. Beneath the wild overgrowth, a single inscription in Latin caught her eye. Translating it, she learned it was a memorial to a soldier who had fallen in battle centuries ago, a man whose dreams and sorrows were now echoed in the wind. With every discovery, Evelyn felt as if she were piecing together a vast, emotional mosaic, each fragment revealing more about the forgotten secrets the road guarded so fiercely. One twilight, as the sky turned a deep indigo and the first stars began to shimmer, Evelyn found herself in a particularly silent part of the road. Here, the murmurs grew louder and more distinct. She sat upon an old stone bench and closed her eyes, letting the wind's whispers wash over her. The voices coalesced into a chorus, a symphony of half-remembered words, soft pleas, and gentle declarations of love and loss. In the soundscape, she heard the voice of a mother calling out for her child, the distant laughter of a lover, and the solemn tone of a man bidding farewell to life. It was as if the road itself had become a portal, drawing forth the buried emotions of the land. Overwhelmed by the experience, tears streamed down Evelyn's face as she scribbled down every word in her journal. The voices spoke to her, revealing not only the secrets of long-departed souls, but also the deep, unhealed wounds of her own heart. In that moment, she understood that the road was not merely a physical passage. It was a mirror reflecting the collective grief and hope of humanity. Deep within the forest that bordered the road, Evelyn encountered an enigmatic figure. Cloaked in a long, weathered coat and with eyes that seemed to hold centuries of wisdom, the figure introduced himself as Alias, a guardian of the road and keeper of its secrets. Alias explained that the road had been created in a time when the land was alive with magic, and that it was intended to serve as a bridge between the past and the present. "Every step you take," he murmured, "awakens the echoes of those who once walked these paths. The road whispers their secrets so that we may remember and learn from the tapestry of their lives." Alias cautioned Evelyn that the road was both a blessing and a burden. Its whispers could comfort those seeking solace, but they could also ensnare the unwary in a web of longing and sorrow. The secrets you hear are not easily forgotten, he warned. They can become a part of you, both a guide and a chain. Walk with care and let your heart decide which voices to keep and which to let fade away. Empowered by Elias's words, Evelyn resolved to listen deeply, not just to the road's external echoes, but also to the quiet voice within her own heart. Each day as she walked the path, she found herself slowly piecing together not only the stories of the lost souls, but also fragments of her own identity. Memories long suppressed, of childhood laughter, of first heartbreaks, of dreams abandoned, rose up in a gentle cascade of emotion. She began to write poetry and short reflections in her journal, each entry a dialogue with the past and a step toward understanding her own soul. The road, with its endless, winding course, became both her guide and her canvas, a place where every whisper, every sigh of the wind, was a note in the symphony of life. The more she embraced the road's secrets, the more she discovered that every lost memory carried a lesson, every forgotten dream, a spark of hope waiting to be rekindled. Yet as the journey continued, the sheer weight of the whispered secrets began to take its toll. The voices of the lost, once a source of comfort, started to feel like chains that bound her to a past she could no longer change. The relentless echoes of sorrow and regret threatened to overwhelm her, to drown out the gentle beat of the present. In the quiet solitude of a moonlit clearing, Evelyn found herself questioning the cost of remembering. "Must we always carry the voices of those who are gone?" she whispered into the night, her heart aching with the burden of countless lost souls. The road, in its infinite wisdom, offered no simple answers. It simply continued to whisper, indifferent to the pain it stirred. The delicate balance between memory and moving forward became a tightrope on which Evelyn teetered. Each step a struggle between clinging to the past and forging a future unburdened by sorrow. One crisp autumn evening, as the first leaves began to fall and the sky blushed with the soft hues of impending dusk, Evelyn found herself in a clearing where the whispers took on a new quality. The voices, which had once been laden with melancholy, now carried a note of gentle resolution, as if the road were urging her to transform her grief into a source of strength. Here, under the fading light, she sat on an ancient stone and allowed herself to fully weep, not just for the lost souls echoing on the wind, but for the parts of herself that had been hidden in the shadow of regret. In that cathartic moment, the path revealed its deepest secret, that the act of remembering, however painful, was also an act of healing. Each tear shed was a release, each whispered name a tribute to a life lived and lost. The road was not a prison of sorrow, but a river of renewal, carrying the memories of the past and transforming them into the wisdom of the present. With newfound resolve, Evelyn began to see that the true magic of the road was not in the accumulation of sorrow, but in the capacity to learn from it and to let it guide her toward a future filled with possibility. As the seasons turned and the endless journey along the road continued, Evelyn reached a crossroads. The path before her, shrouded in perpetual twilight and echoing with the voices of the lost, presented her with a profound dilemma. Should she continue to walk this endless road, forever absorbing the whispered secrets of the past? Or should she turn back to the world of the living, a world where the future was unwritten and the weight of memory could be set aside for a time? In the quiet hours before dawn, as the wind sang its mournful tune and the first light of day hesitantly pushed back the shadows, Evelyn found herself standing at the edge of the trail. The decision was not easy. The road had become an inseparable part of her. Its echoes had become entwined with the very fabric of her soul. Yet she knew that to remain forever lost in the labyrinth of memory would be to forsake the possibility of new beginnings. With a heavy heart, she made her choice. She would carry the lessons of the road with her, but she would step back into the world of the living and allow herself the chance to build a future unburdened by endless recollection. As she turned away, the whispers of the road faded softly, as if in farewell, a promise that she would always carry its legacy within her. Years later, long after the path had receded into the mists of memory, Evelyn emerged as a changed soul. Her journal, filled with poetic musings and the haunting echoes of the road, became a cherished record, a legacy of an endless journey that taught her that life is not defined by its destinations, but by the courage to wander, to feel, and to grow. Evelyn became a storyteller and a mentor in Harrow's End. She gathered those who felt lost or burdened by the weight of their own memories and shared with them the lessons of the vanishing path. Together, they learned that every step taken on that endless road was a piece of an eternal mosaic, a tapestry woven from both joy and sorrow, of beginnings that emerge from endings, and of the quiet, resilient beauty of the human spirit. The legend of the path that leads to nowhere was passed down through the generations, a tale of mystery, introspection, and the courage to embrace life's endless, unpredictable journey. In every whispered breeze that rustled through the ancient forest, in every shadow that danced on the ground, there was a reminder that the true destination is not found at the end of a path, but within the journey itself. In the soft twilight of a crisp winter's eve, as the last vestiges of sunlight faded into a tranquil, starry night, Evelyn sat upon a weathered bench at the edge of the forest. The path was no longer visible, a mere echo of the journey that had once guided her. Yet in her heart, the memories of every step, every whispered secret, and every bittersweet moment lived on. She closed her eyes and listened to the wind, now gentle and familiar, and in its quiet murmur, she heard the promise that the journey never truly ends. Thus the story of the path that leads to nowhere endures, a haunting, bittersweet chronicle of wandering souls, endless introspection, and the eternal truth that our lives are defined not by the destinations we reach, but by the journeys we dare to undertake. For as long as there are hearts brave enough to wander and minds willing to dream, the path will continue to whisper its timeless secret, that in every step lies the infinite possibility of becoming. Miles Thompson had grown up on the outskirts of Harrow's End, absorbing stories of wandering spirits and roads that led to nowhere. As a young man, restless and yearning for something beyond the monotony of daily life, he had often wandered the woods near his home. The old tales ignited in him a burning desire to experience the extraordinary, a path whispered to lead not to a place, but into the very depths of one's being. One crisp autumn evening, while rummaging through a box of childhood mementos in his attic, Miles uncovered a faded hand-drawn map. The map depicted a narrow trail, marked with cryptic symbols and annotated in a script that hinted at otherworldly origins. The accompanying note read, "Seek the path, and you shall know thyself. Follow its winding course, though it leads to nowhere." With heart pounding and a mix of hope and trepidation, Miles resolved to find this elusive path. At dawn, with the sky streaked in gentle pinks and the air crisp with promise, Miles set out on his quest. He ventured deep into the ancient woods that bordered his village, where towering trees formed a natural cathedral, and every step seemed to echo with the whispers of the past. The path was not marked by any signpost, but rather by subtle hints. A slight depression in the earth here, a scattering of wildflowers there, that urged him onward. As he walked, the world around him transformed. The chatter of birds gave way to a profound silence, and familiar landmarks blurred into a shifting mosaic of green and gold. With every step, the path seemed to fade behind him, dissolving as if it were never meant to be permanently seen. Miles felt both invigorated and unsettled by the uncanny sensation that the very earth was rewriting itself with every stride. Hours turned into what felt like days. Miles's journey through the woods became a dreamlike trance, time itself losing meaning amid the interplay of light and shadow. The path, which at first had been clear, now twisted and doubled back on itself. No matter how often he retraced his steps or marked the trees with small notches, the trail would vanish, leaving him to wander deeper into the forest's embrace. In the stillness, he began to notice other peculiarities. The gentle breeze carried murmurs that seemed almost like echoes of voices long forgotten. A soft rustling in the underbrush hinted at shapes moving just beyond sight. The forest, it seemed, was alive with the memories of all who had walked this path before him. A tapestry of hopes, regrets, and hidden dreams that lent the woods an air of profound melancholy. One cool twilight, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the first stars emerged, Miles paused by a small clearing. There, in the fading light, he heard something unmistakable, a soft, sorrowful murmur, as if the wind itself were reciting names and lost memories. The sound was delicate and yet insistent, a quiet elegy that spoke of lives once lived and dreams that had slipped away into the mists of time. He closed his eyes and listened, feeling the weight of countless forgotten moments press upon his heart. In that moment, the path revealed its secret. It was not a route to a destination, but a mirror reflecting the deepest longings and the unspoken truths of those who dared to follow it. The murmuring voices, though faint, carried the resonance of every joy and sorrow experienced along life's endless journey. As Miles continued his solitary voyage, he began to perceive the path as a journey inward rather than outward. With each step, the shifting trail seemed to evoke memories of his own past, a childhood filled with laughter and tears, the bittersweet parting of loved ones, and moments of triumph and despair intermingled in a vast internal tapestry. The forest's silence became a canvas upon which the echoes of his soul were painted in vivid hues. One day, while resting beneath an ancient oak, Miles found a small, weathered stone inscribed with the words, "To know oneself is to embrace the journey." The inscription resonated deeply within him. In that quiet moment, he understood that the path leading to nowhere was a metaphor for life itself, a ceaseless quest where every step was both a discovery and a letting go, where the journey was not measured by a destination, but by the wisdom and insight gathered along the way. In the midst of his wandering, Miles unexpectedly encountered another traveler, a young woman named Lila, with eyes like twilight and a quiet, determined air, had also been drawn to the enigmatic path. Their meeting was both serendipitous and bittersweet. They shared stories of their past, tales of heartbreak, loss, and moments of fleeting beauty, and for a time, they walked side by side, their companionship a brief respite from the isolation of the endless journey. Lila spoke of her own experiences on the path. "Every time I walk here," she said softly, "I feel as though I'm peeling back the layers of who I was, who I might have been, and who I could become. But sometimes the echoes are too much to bear. They remind me of all I've lost, all I've left behind." Her words resonated with Miles, and together they forged a fragile bond, each step taken not just as an exploration of the physical path, but as a journey into the depths of their souls. However, as mysteriously as they had met, Lila eventually vanished one fog-laden morning. One moment she was there, offering a warm smile and a shared glance of understanding. The next she had melted into the mist, leaving Miles with the bittersweet memory of a connection that had been as ephemeral as the path itself. Alone once again, Miles pressed forward, his heart heavy with the memory of Lila's brief presence. The path continued its endless, cyclical journey through the forest, And with every step, he began to confront the inescapable truth of his own solitude. The deeper he ventured, the more he sensed that the path was designed not to lead him to a physical destination, but to force him to face the vast, uncharted territory of his own inner world. One cold, moonless night, as he wandered along a narrow, twisting trail, the forest fell eerily silent. The usual rustle of leaves and distant calls of nocturnal creatures ceased. In that profound quiet, Miles felt an overwhelming emptiness, a void that echoed with the weight of all his unspoken fears and regrets. The path, now shrouded in darkness, seemed to pulse with a silent, relentless demand. To embrace the truth of who he was and to accept the infinite nature of the journey. He sank to his knees, tears streaming down his face, and whispered into the darkness, "I am here. I am lost, but I am also searching." In that moment, the forest responded with a gentle breeze that stirred the leaves, carrying with it a soft murmur, a faint, distant echo of reassurance. Though the path led to nowhere in a physical sense, it had opened a doorway within him, a chance to reconcile his past with the ever-unfolding present. Over time, Miles began to see the beauty in the path's endlessness. Each day was a new chapter in a never-ending story, a mosaic of fleeting moments, each one precious in its impermanence. He learned that the path was not a curse, but a profound lesson in the art of living. Its ever-shifting nature taught him that every experience, every memory, and every sorrow was part of a vast, unending tapestry of existence. The journey itself, with all its twists and turns, was a testament to the infinite capacity for growth and renewal. Miles started to document his journey meticulously. His journal became a repository of raw emotions, vivid sketches of the forest's haunting beauty, and reflections on the nature of time and memory. He wrote about the fleeting companionship with Lila, the echoes of voices carried by the wind, and the moments of quiet revelation that emerged from the darkness. His words, filled with both melancholy and hope, resonated deeply with anyone who read them, inspiring others to embrace the uncertainty of life as a path to self-discovery. One crisp morning, after what felt like an eternity wandering the endless path, Miles found himself at the crest of a hill. Below, the familiar lights of Harrow's End twinkled in the distance, like beacons of the world he had once known. Standing on that hill, with the vast forest stretching out before him, he felt a powerful, bittersweet pull. The path that had led him inward was now merging with the world of the living, a reminder that every journey must eventually intersect with reality. With a heavy heart, yet emboldened by the wisdom gleaned from his endless voyage, Miles turned toward the town. The descent was slow and contemplative, each step filled with the memories of an infinite journey. Back in Harrow's End, the world seemed the same on the surface, yet Miles was irrevocably changed. The ordinary had gained new meaning. Each moment was a precious fragment of an unending story, and every step forward was both an ending and a beginning. In the years that followed, Miles became a storyteller and a quiet sage, sharing the lessons of the path with all who would listen. His journals, filled with intricate reflections on life's impermanence and the beauty of endless wandering, were published and became a beacon of hope for those who felt lost in the vast expanse of existence. People from far and wide traveled to Harrow's End, seeking to walk the path, even if only for a moment, in the hope of glimpsing the infinite tapestry of life. At annual gatherings in the village square, neighbors and strangers alike would recount tales of the mysterious trail, a journey that taught them that the true destination was not a place to be reached, but the experiences gathered along the way. The path that leads to nowhere became a powerful metaphor for life, an invitation to embrace every moment, to acknowledge both joy and sorrow, and to understand that the search for meaning is a journey without end. In the quiet twilight of his later years, Miles would often return to the forest edge. Sitting on a weathered bench beneath ancient trees, he'd watch as the light faded and the shadows lengthened, each whisper of the wind a reminder of his endless journey. The path, though it led to nowhere in the physical world, continued to echo in his heart, a perpetual invitation to keep moving, to keep searching for beauty in the infinite dance of life. For those brave enough to step into the unknown, the path remains, a silent, eternal testament to the human spirit, a journey not measured by destination, but by the countless moments that make up a life. And as long as the ancient forest stands, its winding trail will continue to whisper its timeless secret, that the true meaning of existence is found not in the arrival, but in the endless, wondrous journey itself. Thus, the tale of the path that leads to nowhere endures, a haunting, bittersweet saga of self-discovery, of moments both ephemeral and eternal, and of the quiet beauty that lies in wandering without end. Eleanor Rourke had grown up on the edge of these wild lands, where every village elder recounted the legend of the wandering graveyard with a mix of reverence and dread. As a child, she would lie awake on cold nights, listening to the wind outside and imagining spectral graves appearing and disappearing like fleeting memories. Though she longed to see it for herself, the notion of a place where death itself was unsettled filled her with both morbid curiosity and quiet fear. Now in her early 30s and a dedicated historian with a passion for the macabre, Elena found herself returning to her hometown of Brackenford. After years spent in the city, the call of her childhood legends proved irresistible. Among her late grandmother's belongings, she discovered an old journal, its pages brittle with time and inscribed with cryptic references to the restless grounds and the graveyard that moves as the night falls. With renewed determination, Elena resolved to uncover the truth behind the legend, even if it meant venturing into the unknown realms of shifting death. One crisp autumn evening, as the sky blushed with the deep reds and purples of dusk, Elena packed a small rucksack with essentials, a notebook, a camera, a lantern, and the journal of her grandmother, and set off into the twilight. The path led her along winding country roads and over rolling fields until she reached the outskirts of the ancient Brackenwood forest. Locals said that the graveyard often emerged from within these very woods, hidden beneath layers of mist and memory. The forest was alive with sound and color, the rustle of leaves, the soft chirp of crickets, and the cool whisper of the wind, but also with an unsettling stillness that seemed to defy time. As she ventured deeper, the world around her began to blur, and a thick, ghostly fog crept in, swallowing familiar landmarks and casting the landscape in surreal hues of silver and blue. Elena's heart raced. She knew she was close to something extraordinary. Just as night fully claimed the sky, she stumbled upon an expanse that was curiously barren, a field of wild grass under the pale light of the moon. In the center of the field lay a collection of weathered tombstones, their inscriptions worn and nearly indecipherable. For a fleeting moment, as she moved closer, the ground seemed to tremble and the fog shifted. Then just as suddenly, the tombstones dissolved into darkness, as if they had never been there. Elena gasped and scribbled furiously in her notebook, recording every detail of this first encounter with the elusive graveyard. Over the following nights, Elena returned to the forest, each time following subtle clues left by nature. A peculiar arrangement of stones, a sudden clearing in the mist, or the echo of distant laments that carried on the wind. She soon discovered that the graveyard's location was not fixed. It roamed the landscape like a phantom. One night, it appeared on the edge of a desolate moor, its tombstones half submerged in dew and illuminated by a ghostly moon. On another, it emerged in the ruins of an old chapel, where ivy clung to crumbling walls and the air was thick with the scent of decay. Elena documented these experiences meticulously, her journal filled with sketches and descriptions of scenes that defied logic. A graveyard whose borders blurred with the surrounding landscape, where names and dates on tombstones sometimes appeared and then vanished, leaving behind only the echoes of whispered prayers. Each encounter deepened her fascination and her fear as she realized that this shifting necropolis was more than a mere legend. It was a living, breathing reminder of mortality's uncertainty. One moonless night, as the fog swallowed the world and the forest was cloaked in utter darkness, Eleanor reached what appeared to be the heart of the wandering graveyard. In a clearing surrounded by ancient oaks, she found a cluster of tombstones arranged in a loose circle. The silence was profound, broken only by the occasional creak of a leaning stone. As she approached, she felt a chill run down her spine. An almost imperceptible murmur began to rise from the tombstones, like distant voices carried on the wind. With a trembling hand, she placed her ear against one of the cold, rough surfaces. To her astonishment, faint whispers filtered through, a soft chorus of voices that spoke in a language of sorrow and remembrance. They told tales of lives lived in triumph and tragedy, of loves lost and forgotten, of dreams that had flickered and died. Each name that the voices uttered seemed to carry with it a story, a fragment of a soul that had once walked the earth. The experience was both heartbreaking and profoundly beautiful. It was as if the graveyard was not merely a resting place for the dead, but a living archive of all the forgotten histories and unspoken emotions of those who had passed on. Overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment, tears streamed down Elena's face. She felt the weight of countless souls upon her heart, a burden of memory that was as luminous as it was sorrowful. Yet amid the melancholy, she sensed a call to honor these lost voices, to preserve their stories, and to keep their memories alive. In the days that followed her encounter, Elena began to piece together the mysterious forces that governed the wandering graveyard. Through conversations with elderly villagers and obscure references in her grandmother's journal, she learned that the graveyard was once the final resting place of a long-forgotten civilization. According to legend, the people of that ancient land believed that the boundary between life and death was fluid, and they built their necropolis in a location that was meant to be temporary, a sanctuary that would move with the ebb and flow of fate. Tragedy struck when an untimely calamity, an invasion, a plague, or perhaps a great betrayal, sundered the community, scattering their souls to the winds. In their grief and desperation, the survivors invoked a powerful, forbidden ritual to honor the dead, binding their memories to the very earth. The ritual, however, was not without consequence. The spell backfired. In the graveyard, once meant to be a perpetual memorial, became cursed to wander the land. Its location shifted with every passing night, as if it were following the collective sorrow of a people forever divided between memory and oblivion. Elena now understood that the wandering graveyard was both a blessing and a curse, a reminder that the dead could never be truly forgotten, but also a haunting symbol of a past that could never be reclaimed. This realization filled her with a profound sense of purpose. She resolved to document the history of the graveyard, to collect the stories of those who had been lost, and to share the wisdom hidden within the echoes of its shifting stones. Compelled by her newfound mission, Elena began to organize quiet gatherings in Elderwood. On cold, clear nights when the fog was at its densest and the full moon illuminated the barren fields, villagers, scholars, and descendants of the ancient people would come together to honor the wandering graveyard. They formed a circle of remembrance, each person contributing personal stories of loss, hope, and the enduring power of memory. At these gatherings, by the light of flickering candles and the soft glow of the moon, people recounted tales of ancestors who had vanished without a trace, of names that were whispered in the wind, and of promises made to honor the dead. The graveyard, though never seen in a fixed place, loomed large in their collective imagination. a spectral reminder that even in the face of relentless change, the bonds of memory could never be severed. Elena recorded these sessions with meticulous care. The voices, both literal and metaphorical, intermingled in a haunting chorus that spoke of sorrow and solace. As she listened, she realized that the wandering graveyard was a mirror to the human condition, a place where every life, every loss, was interwoven into the fabric of the present. The circle of remembrance became a cherished tradition, a way for the people of Elderwood to find comfort in their shared grief and to celebrate the legacy of those who had come before. In her quest to unravel the secrets of the wandering graveyard, Elena ventured further into the uncharted lands beyond Elderwood. Guided by the ancient map tucked away in her grandmother's journal, she embarked on expeditions to remote, forgotten sites where the ground seemed to hum with a spectral energy. In one desolate valley, she discovered an overgrown crypt filled with crumbling statues and faded inscriptions that spoke of eternal wandering. In another, she encountered a small, abandoned village where every building was marked by peculiar symbols, the same ones that adorned the stones in the ancient graveyard. At each location, the phenomenon was the same. As night fell, the graveyard appeared, only to vanish with the first light of dawn. With every expedition, Elena's understanding deepened. She began to suspect that the graveyard was not merely a supernatural occurrence, but a living archive of the land's history, a repository for the memories of an entire people, scattered by the tides of time and grief. One particularly stormy night, while sheltering in a ruined chapel deep in the wilderness, Elena experienced a vision. Amid the roar of the wind and the clamor of rain, she saw the graveyard materialize before her, a spectral landscape of shifting tombstones and ghostly figures bathed in moonlight. In that moment, she felt the weight of countless souls pressing upon her, and she heard a singular, heart-wrenching whisper, "Remember us." The vision faded as quickly as it had come, leaving her with a deep, aching certainty that the wandering graveyard was a bridge between what was lost and what remained in the hearts of those who remembered. As autumn turned to winter, the harsh cold amplified the mystery of the graveyard. The nights grew longer, and the fog that often blanketed the land took on a spectral quality, swirling around ancient stones and casting eerie, elongated shadows. During one frigid night, while the full moon glowed pale and somber, Elena ventured out to a site where the graveyard was rumored to appear. The wind was biting, and every step was a struggle against the relentless chill. At the exact moment when the clock struck midnight, the air grew thick, and a soft glow emerged on the horizon. Slowly, as if materializing from the mist, the wandering graveyard revealed itself, a cluster of weathered tombstones arranged in an intricate pattern, illuminated by the silver light of the moon. The sight was both breathtaking and terrifying, stirring a deep primal emotion within her. In the silence that followed, Elena sat before the tombstones, her breath visible in the cold air, and listened. The wind carried faint voices, each one a soft, mournful call that seemed to beckon her closer. The voices were not chaotic, but harmonized in a sorrowful lullaby that spoke of loss and longing. In that moment, she felt an overwhelming connection to the past, a tapestry of lives woven together by shared grief and the unyielding passage of time. With tears in her eyes, she vowed to honor the memories of the lost souls, to document their stories, and to ensure that the legacy of the wandering graveyard would never be forgotten. Determined to forge a path from sorrow to healing, Elena began to work with the people of Elderwood, organizing gatherings and storytelling sessions where the legends of the graveyard were shared. The circle of remembrance evolved into a community of healing, where individuals found solace in the knowledge that they were not alone in their grief. Through shared stories, the heavy burden of loss began to lighten, and the once terrifying legend transformed into a bittersweet symbol of continuity and connection. At these gatherings, elders recounted tales of ancestors who had walked the same land, of loved ones whose names were etched in stone and carried on the wind. Children with wide, curious eyes listened to these stories as if they were magical incantations that wove the past into the present. Elena's own journal, filled with poetic descriptions and raw emotional reflections, became a beacon of hope, a reminder that every memory, no matter how painful, was a treasure to be preserved. Through her efforts, the wandering graveyard became more than a ghostly phenomenon. It became a sacred space, a living monument to the enduring human spirit. The community began to celebrate the beauty of remembrance, to see in every shifting stone a reminder of the precious fragility of life. The curse of the graveyard, once a source of terror, was slowly transformed into a legacy of collective memory and resilience. Years passed, and the legend of the wandering graveyard took on a life of its own in Elderwood. Elena's work, both her writings and her community efforts, had fostered a deep connection between the villagers and the past. The graveyard, though still shifting and elusive, was no longer feared as a harbinger of doom. Instead, it was revered as a symbol of the eternal cycle of life and death, a place where the voices of the lost echoed in gentle reminders of love, sacrifice, and the enduring power of memory. On quiet nights when the moon was full and the wind carried the soft murmur of ancient voices, the villagers would gather near the known spots where the graveyard had appeared. They lit candles, recited poems, and sang old ballads, a celebration of lives that had been, and a promise that their memories would continue to live on in the hearts of those left behind. Elena's journals were passed down from one generation to the next, treasured as sacred texts that taught the value of remembrance and the healing power of shared sorrow. In the twilight of her life, Elena often wandered alone to the edge of the forest, where the mist and the shifting ground whispered of the wandering graveyard. She would sit in silence, listening to the wind and watching the stars, feeling the subtle, eternal pulse of memories that bound the past to the present. In those moments, she understood that the graveyard was not a curse, but a reminder, a gentle, perpetual echo of every soul that had ever lived, loved, and lost. For as long as the land endures, the legend of the graveyard that changes locations every night will remain, a timeless saga of sorrow and hope, of loss and redemption. It is a tale that teaches us that every life leaves behind a mark, that every name whispered in the wind is a story worth remembering, and that even in the ever-shifting sands of time, our memories are eternal. Thus ends the chronicle of the wandering graveyard, a story woven from the threads of loss and resilience, of forgotten voices and the unyielding power of memory. In every rustle of leaves and every whispered name carried on the wind, the legacy of the lost lives on, guiding us toward a future where nothing is ever truly forgotten. Evelyn Wren, a dedicated historian and the village's unofficial chronicler of lore, had grown up on the tales of Brackenvale's mysteries. Her grandmother's voice would carry on winter nights as she recounted the legend of the windmill, an eerie yet mesmerizing symbol of the unseen forces that govern their world. When Evelyn inherited the dilapidated Wren cottage on the outskirts of the village, she also inherited a dusty journal filled with handwritten notes and faded photographs of the windmill in its heyday. Determined to understand the phenomenon, Evelyn resolved to restore both the cottage and the memory of the ancient windmill. The windmill, known by villagers simply as the Turning, had long been an icon of Brackenvale. Built in the early 1800s by a pioneering miller whose innovative spirit was rivaled only by his mysterious fate, the windmill was once the heart of the community, powering the village's grain mills and standing as a testament to human ingenuity. Over time, however, as newer technologies emerged and the old ways faded, the windmill fell into disrepair. Yet even as its once proud sails grew weathered and creaky, the legend of its supernatural turning persisted. Despite the absence of any measurable wind, its sails rotated on certain, still, silent nights, as if animated by a secret, otherworldly force. One crisp autumn evening, as the sun dipped low behind the hills and a velvet dusk blanketed Brackenvale, Evelyn ventured out to inspect the windmill. With her journal and camera in hand, she approached the weathered structure. The air was unnervingly still. There was not even a whisper of a breeze. Yet as she drew near, she saw something inexplicable. The massive sails of the windmill turned slowly, gracefully, despite the absolute stillness of the surrounding air. Her heart pounded with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Was it merely an optical illusion, or was the windmill truly moving on its own accord? Evelyn set up her camera to capture the phenomenon and began to record her observations in her journal. As minutes turned into hours, the sight held her in a trance. The slow, deliberate rotation of the sails seemed to evoke a rhythm, a heartbeat, of a force that defied the logic of nature. That night, she left the windmill with more questions than answers, the image of its turning sails etched into her memory like an indelible mark. Over the following weeks, Evelyn immersed herself in research. She pored over town records, diaries, and obscure manuscripts that chronicled the history of Brackenvale. In a tattered ledger from the early 19th century, she discovered the story of Samuel Wren, the windmill's original builder, whose untimely death was shrouded in mystery. Samuel had been rumored to have dabbled in arcane practices, a desperate attempt to harness nature's secrets in order to save his ailing family. Some whispered that, in his final act, as he lay dying, he had made a pact with forces beyond the mortal realm. His final wish had been that his windmill continue to turn as a symbol of hope, even when the natural world offered no wind. Evelyn began to suspect that the windmill's ceaseless motion was no random quirk of old mechanics. It was imbued with a spell, one that kept it turning even when the air was perfectly still. But the nature of that magic was elusive, woven into the fabric of time and sorrow, and perhaps even the unfulfilled dreams of its creator. One particularly silent night, when the moon shone with a pale, otherworldly light and the village was cloaked in a deep, starless sky, Evelyn returned to the windmill for another observation. As she sat near its base, she felt a strange vibration underfoot, as if the earth itself was humming a quiet lullaby. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, a faint murmur began to rise on the still air, a soft, almost musical whisper that seemed to emanate from the windmill's ancient stones. Evelyn listened intently, straining to catch the words carried on the silence. They were not clear, yet they held the cadence of a long-forgotten language, a hymn of sorrow and longing. In that moment, the windmill appeared to speak, not in the language of man, but in the language of the heart, a language that conveyed the deep, enduring legacy of Samuel Wren and the mysterious forces he had invoked. The voices seemed to echo the promise that the windmill would continue to turn as a beacon of hope, even in a world devoid of wind, a silent tribute to the human spirit's refusal to yield to despair. Word of Evelyn's discovery spread quietly through Brackenville. Curious villagers, scholars, and even a few skeptical outsiders began to visit the windmill on nights when the air was still. In hushed tones, they shared their own observations. The inexplicable turning of the sails, the faint murmur of voices in the silence, and the feeling that the windmill was more than a mere relic of the past, but a living, breathing symbol of hope and melancholy intertwined. At one such gathering, a local innkeeper named Mr. Jenkins recounted an old family tale. My grandfather said the windmill was built not just to grind grain, but to remind us that even in our darkest hours, when the world seems motionless and hope is but a memory, there is always a spark, a whisper of life that endures, he said, his voice trembling with reverence. The shared stories wove a tapestry of wonder and sorrow, binding the community together in a common belief that the windmill was a guardian of secrets and a keeper of timeless hope. Inspired by the collective yearning to understand the magic of the windmill, Evelyn proposed a daring idea, a ritual of renewal that might unlock the secret behind its ceaseless turning. She believed that by combining the ancient lore of Brackenville with modern scholarship and the heartfelt stories of its people, they could unravel the mystery and perhaps even harness the windmill's magic for the good of the community. Under a full radiant moon, the villagers gathered around the windmill in a solemn ceremony. They brought offerings of wildflowers, old letters, and mementos of loved ones lost to the ravages of time. At the stroke of midnight, Evelyn led the group in reciting an incantation adapted from Samuel Wren's long-forgotten diary. As the words flowed through the crisp night air, the ground beneath them seemed to vibrate softly, and the windmill's sails began to turn even more steadily than before. The murmurs in the air grew into a harmonious chorus, a merging of ancient voices with the heartfelt hopes of the villagers. In that transcendent moment, the windmill became a living symbol of renewal, a beacon that promised that even in the stillness, the human spirit could find a way to turn the tide of fate. Yet the ritual also revealed a darker truth. In the aftermath of the ceremony, as the villagers returned to their homes under the lingering glow of the moon, Evelyn noticed that the windmill's magic seemed to have a cost. Those who had participated in the ritual reported experiencing vivid dreams, nightmares, and visions of the past where time itself rewound in painful, unyielding loops. One young man claimed that he had seen the moment of his own birth reversed, a scene filled with the overwhelming sorrow of lost potential. Others spoke of memories they wished they could forget, relived in excruciating detail during the long, silent hours of the night. Evelyn, though determined to understand the true nature of the magic, could not ignore these warnings. In her journal, she wrote, "The windmill's turning, though a symbol of hope and resilience, is tethered to a legacy of sorrow. Every revolution of its ancient sails seems to extract a price, a fleeting moment of our essence, a glimpse into a past we can never reclaim. The gift of turning back time, it seems, is as much a curse as it is a blessing." This realization weighed heavily on her, and she began to grapple with a profound question. Was it truly a gift to be able to glimpse the past? Or was the relentless pull of memories a burden too heavy for the soul? As the months passed, the mystery of the windmill and its enchanted turning became a central part of Brackenvale's collective consciousness. The villagers found themselves torn between the allure of the past and the imperative to move forward. The windmill's ceaseless turning, even in the absence of wind, served as a metaphor for their own lives. A reminder that while the past could be revisited, it was a realm from which one might never return unchanged. In a heartfelt town meeting held in the old community hall, elders, youths, scholars, and ordinary residents debated the fate of the windmill's magic. Some argued that its power was a blessing, a source of wisdom and renewal that could help them learn from the past. Others warned that the endless turning was a trap, a curse that threatened to keep them shackled to memories of sorrow and regret. Amid the heated discussions, a quiet voice emerged, one that belonged to Evelyn. "We cannot change what has been, nor can we erase our memories," she said softly. "But we can choose how we carry them. The windmill reminds us that life, like time, is always in motion. We must honor our past, learn from it, and then let it go so that we may build a future unburdened by endless echoes." Her words resonated deeply with the villagers, who slowly came to accept that the key to healing was not to cling to the past, but to let its lessons guide them toward new beginnings. Years later, as Brackenville emerged from its long night of sorrow into a season of gentle renewal, the legend of the windmill that turned when there was no wind became a cherished part of the town's identity. The windmill, now restored and maintained by the community, continued its mysterious rotation, its ancient sails turning silently against the backdrop of a clear, windless sky. Though its magic remained enigmatic, it had come to symbolize the eternal dance between memory and hope, between sorrow and the promise of a new day. Evelyn's memoir, The Turning of Time, was published and touched countless readers, inspiring them to confront their own pasts with courage and to embrace the inevitability of change. The book recounted not only the mystery of the windmill, but also the journey of a community learning to let go of the ghosts that had haunted them for so long. In every chapter, the windmill's turning was a metaphor, a quiet, relentless reminder that while the past may shape us, it does not have to define us. In the soft light of a fading afternoon, on a day when the air was calm and still, the villagers of Brackenvale would gather by the restored windmill. They would watch in silent reverence as its sails rotated, slowly, gracefully, as if caressing the horizon with the wisdom of ages. The windmill had become a beacon, not of despair, but of hope, a monument to the human spirit's resilience in the face of relentless time. For those who gazed upon it, the sight of the windmill turning in a windless sky was both a comfort and a call, a gentle reminder that even in the absence of external forces, the power to change, to heal, and to move forward lay within each heart. The legacy of the windmill was one of eternal transformation, a promise that while the past is forever, it is also a foundation upon which the future can be built. Thus ends the chronicle of the windmill that turns when there's no wind, a story of mystery, loss, and ultimately of the indomitable strength to forge hope from the echoes of yesterday. For as long as the windmill's ancient sails continue their quiet, inexplicable rotation, the people of Brackenvale will remember that every moment, no matter how still it may seem, holds the promise of new beginnings.